Okay, hey guys, good morning. This is Cliff, Curry Custom Cutlery. As promised, I think we're going to try and go ahead and start our weekly Sunday morning series. Hoping to keep this going, and they should extend out and become more detailed as we go through. It's just kind of a process of starting. You got to start somewhere. So for the first video of the weekly show, I thought we'd just go ahead and take a look at serrations, and we'll take a look at serrations 3 different ways. We'll start, we'll just discuss how to do it by hand file, sandpaper dowel, and then we have a manual method that's inexpensive using a diamond drill bit in a Dremel. It works fine, or a custom diamond wheel with a profile that matches the profile depth of the scallop, and we'll talk about that more. The critical part is once you get the scallops in is how you debore it, and we'll go through all that just after the break. I'll go ahead and get set up and I'll be back in just a minute. Thanks. Okay, so first of the tools we're going to look at is maybe something that people already have in their kit or have readily available to them. This would be it's not a steel, it's a diamond rod. And medium coarse, I'd have to say it's got to be about 200 to 400 grit, maybe 400 to 600. Pretty coarse, but nice, long, straight. It's got a good radius, and that radius is going to allow us to match the scallops that are already on the serrated blade. Each blades are going to be different. If you got a bigger blade, you're naturally going to need a bigger circumference of your circle. But the main idea is that you can match the bevel and just walk right up it in a smooth manner and follow the existing serrations, inspecting. As long as you're holding the same angle and you're pretty firm. That's one of the things that I try to talk about a lot for sharpening and for serrations especially, is if you want a consistent result, you got to brace yourself in some way or form so that you're consistent as well, consistent with your angle or consistent with your motion and your pressure, and that way you'll get even bevels or even tips, bevels, anything that you're trying to do. Not recommended, but if you have to, if you don't have any other method available, and especially for some different sizes, there's some different size diamond files and things like that, round files, triangle files. Those are really good for Spyderco serrations and other things, the smaller type serrations that may be a little different. If you have the different hand files, that's one great option that's available to you. All right, let's get on to the more serious stuff. Next is the first method that I found that really worked well for me, and it was also budget friendly. Diamond Dremel Bit, medium coarseness, about 80 grit. They're often used by dog groomers. They also work really good for serrations. The jumbo size, large size, the radius of the bit is just about the right size to put a really nice scallop into your blade. So like we were saying just in the last segment, one of the keys to get good results is proper anchoring. You can't just hold this here and like freehand it and expect it to get any sort of decent result. First I like to anchor my hand and anchor the knife. So I will hold the knife and I'll hold the handle, and my hand is firmly on the bench. And then the second thing I'll do is I'll bring in, and this is going to be a pivot sort of situation, and I'm holding and squeezing, and so I'm just moving up and down. This one's going to move straight up and down, 1, 2, and then this one's going to move 1, 2. And if you do it right, you'll get a real consistent action. And it's pretty easy just to watch what you're doing. And you got to hold it in the light so you can see the reflection of the bevel as well. And I'll zoom in so you can see a little closer that method. Okay, hopefully that's in focus. And just really quick, so again, so you can get an idea, I'm holding it at the right angle. I brace this with my other hand. So, and it'll have a big burr on the backside. We'll have to remove that. That's actually the critical part. But you can get some pretty decent scallops going that way. Does it look like it came from the factory? Not quite, but you can get some decent points, especially if they're completely sanded down. The main thing you got to watch with the bit is that the bit is rotating to the side, so it naturally wants to jump out of the scallop as you're pushing down into it. You just have to be really firm and anchored and do a nice motion. Second best way. We're going to go, all the methods have the same thing in common. They put a burr up on the backside, and we'll talk more about, just sharpening from the backside if that's possible and how you can get away with it. But for these methods, we're talking about really just grinding through and making new scallops or refreshing the scallops. And that's always going to move the burr to the backside, and you can almost see it in the light. And then what we'll do is we'll discuss several different ways to finish using the Scotch Brite wheel, etc. Before we do that, I'm going to show you the third and final thing, which will be this machine right here. Let me go ahead and just position it. Be right back. Okay. This is easily my favorite way to sharpen serrations, and it's easy to understand why. The wheel, I've got it rotating away, so I'm going to be holding this way. You could have it rotating forward and flip this over and put the serrations underneath. You could even put them on a small table. I find that I can brace the knife with my hand right here, and I can just go 1, 2, 3, and just walk right down the blade. So the wheel's spinning up and away. You can see it's actually, some of the coating is starting to come off. I don't love the 400 grit. I think a 200 grit wheel would be better. This is a 1/2 inch wide by a 6-inch radius wheel. 6-inch diameter, and it's a 1/2 inch wide. The 1/2 inch wide will actually make closer to a 1/4 inch serration, because you're not going a full 180 degrees around. You're actually only doing that much of the serration, if that makes sense. So a 1/2 inch wide wheel will make a 1/4 inch wide serration, give or take. You can use it, a fit size. If you need the bigger size, you're going to need a different size wheel. This is the most common for your standard Victorinox and many of the ones you see in commercial kitchens. So let's take a look at if it'll focus. They're a little sloppy. They're a little all over the place. I'm going to try and straighten them out and clean them up with one shot. And honestly, I don't know why I can't get it to focus, but let's just make it happen. So I'm going to turn on the machine. It's just a motor with an adapter spinning the wheel. We're running at under 1,000 RPMs to avoid a heat buildup. And I'm going to go ahead and just go right down the whole blade. Straighten up some of the stuff we did from the previous 2 methods. Come into the third. Now we're getting into the part we haven't done before. Again, with the positioning and the stabilizing, I'm holding. I got my arm, you can't see it, but my arm is locked against my side, and there's no loosey-goosey stuff going on. It's actually very stable, and I'm locked right into position. It naturally wants to fall right down into the valley of the scallop. It doesn't try and buck or jump out. I think that's the biggest advantage, is the consistency you get just because of that. So we actually have real scallops going all the way from the top to the bottom, and a burr formed all the way from the top to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and set the machine back a little bit, the camera back, and we'll see if we can't get a little better focus. Okay, we're repositioned here. We are repositioned over here. This would be my preferred first step these days, and that's a Scotch Brite wheel. It's going to do two things. It's going to, without rolling it over, which the softer buffing pads and things like that. Right now, the burr that's on here is very stiff. It's almost just a deformation of the metal. What we need to do is I would like to soften that up. I want to remove any grind marks from the other step, and this will basically prepare us to remove the final burr once it's softened up and loosened up and we get a satin polish. So this will do that in one step. You could also use a Scotch Brite belt as well, and there's a million different ways to do this. Well, dozens at least. I'm just going to show you a couple different, give you an idea. Some of this is, the fun of it is actually doing the experimenting and figuring out what works for you. Always safety first. This machine is reversed. The motor is going that way. And I want you to make sure that you understand that I'm setting this on top and we're moving away this way. I always have things moving away from me, so there's no danger that way. The correct way to actually keep this machine really safe would be to have a protective shield over the front, so there's no way to jam this in and have it shoot up at you. You don't need this section. This is the section up here where you want to be working. All the rest could be enclosed for safety. There's my safety Sally for the day. Okay. Okay, so we're moving that direction. And I'm not sure, I'm actually going to try and reposition you. I want to get over the top so you can see this. Okay, hopefully that'll do it. This doesn't take but a second. It's just a couple quick swipes. And then I tend to just lightly touch it at 45 and let it roll right down through. And you can actually see a lot of the metal bits flaking off right there. Hit it one more time from the back. Check it. It should be extra spiky feeling. And if you've done good there might not be too many extra pieces. There's just a couple little flakes hanging on at that point. And that is literally all you gotta do. Let me see if I can just do it without doing a cut. And then you come on over here, pull out your, this is a leather belt. I've actually had this leather belt probably 6 years at this point. It's just about wore out. Put a little compound on it. It's going down. The blade is going to be going down. And I'll just, the same sort of thing. Basically, I'm just going to come in and just lightly let the edge knock that burr off. I see a little bit of loose material come up. And that, there's no loose material. It's extra toothy. It's got its points back on it. For the life of me, I don't know why we can't. Oh, there we go. Seriously. So there's a little bit, but you see it just walked right off there. So you can do that a couple times. Extra toothy. Let's see how it slices. Let's see. And this is live. This isn't premeditated or anything like that. If it doesn't work, I'll just cut and do it again. So let's see what we got. So that's just from the Scotch Brite wheel, and then just a light deburring on the leather. And I can see a little bit more that needs to come off right here. I'm coming in, if you're watching, you're coming at the belt, I'm coming 45 degrees this way and 45 degrees this way on the bevel side. And it's a very light pass. And then this one's almost vertical, almost straight up and down on the back side. And with a little finagling, you can get this to really almost push cut right through. Okay, well that's pretty cool. A lot of the guys will talk about how they do serrations. This is taking it when it's down, and I call them ripples, or because we have the ocean here, a lot of wave metaphors. But if you have just ripples left and they've actually sanded it down to almost nothing, you have to use something that can restore the serrations and put the scallops back in. If you have a sharp knife and it has points like this, and you're sharpening it on a repeat basis, one of the things you can do is hit it with something mildly aggressive, not too bad. Let me see if I got a belt here. That's a little too fine. I mean, you could go with an A100, an A45. The Cubitron belts are great for that really heavy-duty material removal step when you need that in life, but they also leave pretty gnarly scratches on the backside. And so if you need to, it's the same thing applies. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. People get asked a lot, just how do you down and dirty serrations without really screwing them up? And if you're gentle about it, the scallop side, the side that has the actual bevel in the serration, that's the side you want to hold at about 45 degrees and about 45 degrees to the belt. And then when you come in at it, you don't go edge leading ever, of course. And then you just let it kind of bump down. And you'll feel a little burr come up on the back side. And then you can lightly brush that off. And then if you want to, you can come again 45 degrees, but instead of going tip to back, you can go from back to tip. You can go tip to back. You can go right here and go back to tip. Same thing. Just walk it off. If you do that 4 or 5 times, you'll notice that the serrations are getting a little bit less pointy, but they're going to get less pointy just from their everyday use in a commercial kitchen anyways. If that's that situation, it's going to work out just fine. At this point, it's probably, see, it's not quite slicing as clean, but it's definitely got the bite and the slice. They're gonna be just happy with that. And if you wanted to, you could go back at that point. Put the leather belt back on. Hopefully this is coming up on camera. And that's the power of the leather belt. We just got a little bit of blue compound on there. I've been really experimenting a lot with leather belt on my truck and using 3 or 6 micron diamond spray, so there's no residue and no gunk you have to wipe off, and getting really good results. Really happy. So there we are, we're right back to being able to call that a winner. And so these are different ways you can put the serrations back on there, and if it's not too bad, you can lightly hit it from the backside. And when I do say lightly hit with the sandpaper from the backside, which is really the most down and dirty way you can do it, if I hold this sideways, and I'm going to just check behind the camera to make sure that you can see that. You can. Let me bring us in a little closer. So if you are just going to hit it from the backside, you don't want to hit it at a steep angle. You want to almost match the flat and just a couple degrees out from the belt. This is leather. Hopefully you guys get the idea of here. Here's a real belt, so you know what we're talking about exactly. All right, so we got a real belt on there. You come in, you're going to just sharpen the serration by pulling the burr from the back to the front. And all you have to do is you just have to hit it on this belt. But if you look from the side, you tip it up, or sorry, out just slightly and walk it along. And you'll feel it bring that tooth and those spikes right back up. I call it playing the violin because it reminds me, or the fiddle, because it reminds me of that when you're doing this. I always like to go at the belt, to go from here and go in. If you try and pull back, you're actually pulling against the belt, and you're pulling it kind of off the machine, and the machine doesn't like that very much. So you can go tip to back, and then from this side, you go back to tip. But there I am holding it out at that 45 degrees again, and that you're hitting the scallop side. Hopefully that'll give you guys some stuff to work on and play around with. Hopefully this video is entertaining and useful for everybody. Having fun with the idea of making these videos every week. We'll cover some different topics. I've got a bunch of different things lined up. I've always wondered what this would look like under a microscope. We could take just a quick look at the chef's choice. I know everybody wants to talk about edge leading and edge trailing, different sharpening methods, horizontal, vertical, and maybe we'll take a look at steels again, and take a look at what actually happens when you're steeling. We could send out some sample knives to different people. They could steal it, we could send them back in, and then anonymously we could look at the results and compare and actually see, realistically what's happening when we do that. Anyways, that's it for today, you guys. It was just a quick one. I wanted to share this with you. This is serrations, 2 different ways you can do it. We do have the diamond bits on our website, shop.currycustomcutlery.com, if you want to do the easy, the inexpensive way. I'm not offering these machines for sale, mostly because I don't want to have to deal with the, it's a DIY thing. I can sell the parts and offer guidance on how to build the machines and give tutorials, but I really don't want to get into the business of building machines at this time. I know some people are upset about that. This machine is really simple to put together. You got a motor mounted to a board. The control panel is on the back, on-off switch, and then you just got a flange and a spacer. The spacer is there to take up the difference between the motor and the diameter inside the wheel. It took me maybe 30 minutes to put this machine together. Cost of the wheel was, I think, just under $100. jadecarver.com is the place to get the wheel, and the motors you can get from Amazon, and there's a bunch of different ones. Try and find the least expensive one you can find because the prices of everything are going up. All right, you guys, I really appreciate you hanging with me and hope you enjoyed the video. If you do all the things they always ask you to do, please, and I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great day. Aloha.